Hello everyone. You may well have heard those of us to the right of Marx refer to our fellow apes as NPCs from time to time. This has become particularly commonplace nowadays due to the proliferation of this particular meme format, whereby the leftist, oikophobe, or authoritarian, however you want to slice it, is seen to react poorly when their platitude or thought-terminating cliché is countered by a simple observation. There is a particular reason that this template works, and a particular reason that the NPC label has become so popular, and that is that, like most rightist memes, it utilizes a very simple, very real, easily recognizable observation as its basis. Unlike lefty memes, which require 5 levels of Class M neo-Marxist feminist abstraction to interpret, most righty memes, like the NPC meme, consist solely of something real that we frequently encounter on an average day. In this case, the NPC drone. I'm sure that, like me, you have had many experiences talking with your average leftoid, and heard them repeat the same trite, overused talking points, often the exact same phraseology you will have heard 1,000,000 times over. Diversity is our strength, trans women are women, Islam is a religion of peace, and other hilarious lies. That explains what an NPC is. Why are they called that? NPC stands for non-player character. In video games, a non-player character is a fictitious entity which typically have very limited functions. They can only perform basic tasks or repeat specific catchphrases or have limited dialogue options. This is because it would be just about impossible to produce sufficiently advanced artificial intelligences required to carry out real-world conversations with each side character in a role-playing game, and it's an obvious technological limitation on the medium. How and why, then, do we meet NPCs in real life? Professor Jordan Peterson noted this phenomenon in his interview with a feminist for GQ.
I'm not hearing what you think. I'm hearing how you're able to represent the ideology you were taught. And it's not that interesting because I don't know anything about you. I could replace you with someone else who thinks the same way. And that means you're not here. That's what it means. It's not pleasant. So you're not integrating the specifics of your personal experience with what you've been taught to synthesize something that's genuine and surprising and engaging in a narrative sense as a consequence. And that's the pathology of ideological possession. It's not good. And it's not good that I know where you stand on things. Once I know a few things, it's like, why have a conversation? I already know where you stand on things.
She then protested and attempted to counter his point by saying that she wasn't an NPC and he couldn't predict what she was thinking. And he responded by predicting exactly what she was thinking.
I bet you don't know where I stand on all things.
I would hope that was true.
Okay, let's talk about transgender issues. That's fun. What do you think I think about transgender issues?
I suspect that you think that gender expression, gender identity are fundamentally social constructs, but I could be wrong.
No, I believe that there are definitely some biological differences between the sexes. We've observed them. I do believe that gender is a hugely powerful social structure that we've built on top of that it is largely but not entirely socially constructed.
Notice how she has to protest as she recognises that being an NPC, as Professor Peterson says, not really being there, is bad. It's a negative thing. So she protests, but she lacks the cognitive ability to think through the chain, can't process it, can't come up with a solution, and has to resort to her pre-programmed responses. How does this occur? There are a number of possible explanations for this phenomenon, but the one that makes the most sense to me is the one that I think accurately explains just about everything in the modern age, and quite possibly throughout most of human history. Memes. Meme theory is a very solid and well-researched branch of the behavioural sciences, and it would take far too long to go in-depth on it in this video, but I believe that a sufficiently condensed explanation would be this. It is the application of the Darwinian theory of natural selection transplanted to the world of ideas. Allow me to explain. All ideas, concepts, thoughts, ideologies, etc. can be shared between humans via a number of media, and when shared they can be modified, that is to say, mutated, and as such transform into something else. and if this change results in the newly minted meme surviving and replicating, and being more successful at spreading, it will naturally outcompete its former version, and will spread itself and continue to mutate, and so on. These memes, sometimes called mind viruses when being described in a negative way, can replicate themselves in many ways, some more effective than others. There is no need for me to go into each of the many ways that these memes can self-replicate, as there is only one that really concerns me, and it is specifically the method that NPC believes are spread, and that is the religious notion of double-think, combined with the Emperor's New Clothes phenomenon. I've no doubt there is a scientific name for this, but I'm not sure what it would be. I will demonstrate with an example from religion. Take Islam. Islam contains within its various teachings a number of rules and regulations that must be abided by, including the penalty for apostasy, that is to say, a rejection of belief, which is death. As a direct result of this selective pressure, it is in the best interests of the Muslim to continue to believe. However, as anyone who has attempted to examine the claims of the religious knows, it is very difficult to convince oneself of something patently absurd. As a result, there are no doubt inevitably going to be many Muslims who in fact do not believe, and as such are doomed to death by denying the creed. It therefore makes sense for the non-believing member to still pretend to believe. What effect does this have? It means that even though an individual follower of the religion might not genuinely believe, they will continue to proselytize to non-believers, indoctrinate their children, and persecute apostates, as not doing so carries the death penalty. It is in this way that the very nature of the mind virus of Islam propagates and grows in popularity. Even those that do not believe insist that they do, and will convert others through force if necessary. This is a common religious tactic, but a perfect example of a non-religious version is Rocco's Basilisk, a thought experiment in which an omnipotent, omniscient artificial intelligence in the future, the Basilisk, uses its knowledge to backtrack into the past and find those who knew of its inevitable existence but did not contribute to it coming into being, and persecutes them for eternity. Therefore, anyone who is aware of the Basilisk must work towards bringing it into being or risk an eternity of artificial intelligence-generated hell. Why am I talking about this? Because this is exactly how NPCs think. As with all mind viruses, they care only about reproduction. This is exactly my problem with the Petersonian perspective that religion must be inherently good because it has survived and spread. So has AIDS, but that doesn't make AIDS good. A given NPC doesn't have to actually believe the mainstream talking points. They don't even need to understand them. They just need to know that if they openly and outwardly disagree with them, that they will be punished. This is the real issue. If you recognize biological reality, you are a transphobe, and open hostility from the community is acceptable. If you recognize criminal statistical reality, you are a racist, and open hostility from the community is acceptable. If you recognize terrorist ideological reality, you are an Islamophobe, and open hostility from the community is acceptable, etc., etc. This is the nature of the mind virus. Regardless of reality, regardless of individual belief, regardless of what is good, what is right, regardless of morality, they will continue to spread in any way they can, and the use of intimidation and violence against apostates is highly effective. How then do we combat this? What can we practically, physically do? There are really two options, both of which I believe ought to be employed by anyone who has any hope for the future of mankind, and they are as follows. Number 1. Fight fire with fire, by combating ideas head-on. Debate wherever and whenever you can. Don't allow people to languish in ignorance. Be as public as you can in your disagreement with these mind viruses. We need as many people as possible to see the intellectual bankruptcy of the NPC viewpoints. This will help those genuinely convinced to change their minds, and show those who only virtue signal for their own protection that they are not alone, and that they too can fight back. Number 2. Refuse to join in the persecution that leads to this situation. Anyone still pretending, still virtue signaling, still professing their love for whichever mind virus it is for their own protection, needs to stop now. This hegemony of villainous ideas is only allowed to continue because it is being propped up by us. We need to stop. Don't cry racist and try to get someone cancelled. Don't call people homophobic. Don't fire people for their political beliefs. If you disagree with someone, Argue with them. Convince them. Don't persecute, educate, debate. Ultimately, we ought to operate in a free market of ideas. That will inevitably result in the best information being shared the most quickly and the most widely. But when some ideas are backed by logic, and some by force, reality is sure to fall to tyranny. We are the only hope against it.